No, this can't be real. Ethan, a tech millionaire, was driving home early when he opened the security camera app. In an instant, his heart seemed to stop. His stepmother, Victoria, was dragging little Emma off the sofa, tossing aside the girl's pink crutch. A heartbreaking cry echoed through the grand mansion. Pain tore through him, and Ethan understood that if he stayed silent one more time, he would lose everything. But what should he do with this horrifying evidence? The black sports car sped down the highway, its tires screeching as if devouring the road. Inside, Ethan's hands clenched the steering wheel, his knuckles white from the pressure. The phone screen mounted on the dashboard still glowed, replaying the live feed from the Malibu mansion's security camera. Each passing second felt like a blade twisting deeper into his chest. In the sharp frame, Victoria, the elegant stepmother once praised by the entire city, no longer looked gentle. Her carefully curled blonde hair was in disarray as she bent down, her face twisted with rage. The hands adorned with glittering rings yanked Emma's pink crutch away and hurled it into the corner, the thud echoing through the room. Emma, the 8-year-old girl with her halting steps, collapsed onto the marble floor. Her heart-wrenching cries reverberated through the gilded halls. Ethan choked back a sob. The world had once looked at him and his family as symbols of joy after loss, but this moment stripped everything bare. He remembered vividly Victoria's debut to the press, her hand hooked around his arm, her smile radiant. A woman of compassion, they had called her. Yet the truth was mercilessly raw. The car swerved sharply, and Ethan barely noticed the horns blaring behind him. Sweat streamed down his temples, soaking into his expensive collar. For a fleeting second, he let out a dry laugh, humorless, defensive. This is my home? The place where my daughter was supposed to be safe? The question needed no answer, but it burned his throat like a shot of whiskey swallowed without breath. On the screen, Emma struggled to crawl toward the discarded crutch, her tiny hands trembling, sliding across the polished floor. Each motion was a living indictment, a testimony to Victoria's cruelty. Blood pounded in Ethan's head. He wanted to push harder on the accelerator, as if shaving even one more minute could erase years of blind trust. Outside the window, Los Angeles blazed with neon lights and luxury billboards. People dined, laughed in their convertibles, unaware that in a mansion just miles away, a child was enduring unbearable pain. The contrast left Ethan breathless. Money, fame, power, none of it mattered if he failed as a father. Memories flickered. Emma's first shaky steps with her pink crutch, her bright eyes holding up a photo of her late mother, her giggles when he clumsily spilled a glass of milk on purpose. Now those moments, shattered like glass, reflecting the agony unfolding before him. The car shot across the bridge, ocean air salty against the windows. Ethan's jaw tightened, every nerve strung taut. In minutes, he would walk into that house not just to save his daughter, but to face the truth he had denied too long. He had brought cruelty into his home. For an instant, the irony struck him. Technology, the very thing that made him a millionaire, had become the mirror exposing his family's tragedy. The security cameras, installed to deter thieves, had revealed the real thief, the woman he once embraced at their wedding. Ethan pressed harder on the gas. The roar of the engine thundered like a warning. He didn't know exactly what he would do when he saw Victoria. But one thing was certain. Silence was no longer an option. This time he would not look away. When a father holds both power and undeniable evidence, how will he choose to expose the truth? So, my dear viewers, if you find this story gripping, type 1 or comment, "I'm still here to keep listening." The automatic iron gate clanged shut behind him, the metallic echo ringing across the stone-paved courtyard. Ethan slammed the brakes at the marble steps, the engine still roaring as he flung open the car door and stormed into the mansion. The crystal chandelier blazed overhead, scattering glittering light across the polished floor. Yet the luxury could not conceal the sight of Emma curled up by the sofa, tears streaking down her tender cheeks. Victoria stood just a few feet away, her hand still lingering from the motion of throwing the crutch. Her glamorous appearance, the silk dress hugging her frame, the flawless makeup only made the contradiction more grotesque. Her gaze faltered at the sight of Ethan, then quickly twisted into a warped, uneasy smile. Ethan entered without a word. The heavy rhythm of his leather shoes struck against the marble floor. The air in the room thickened, so tense it felt as if a single breath could shatter it. Emma looked up, eyes pleading, but her small hands only clutched the sofa's edge tighter. Victoria broke the silence with a syrupy, false sweetness. I was only teaching her some manners. She's getting more defiant, you can see it too. That voice, if not for the camera that had captured everything, could have deceived the world. Ethan remained silent, his face as cold as the marble beneath their feet. But inside, waves of fury surged. He knew if he lost control, he would become the very brute he despised. Instead, he held it in, like a pressure cooker sealing in steam, waiting for the exact moment to unleash it. Victoria rambled on, her eyes darting to him for a reaction. When he gave none, her tone shifted, arrogant, accusatory. You always take her side. She fakes her pain just to get attention. Don't you see? She's so good at acting, you can't even tell what's real anymore. Gaslighting an American audience would recognize it instantly. The abuser cast as victim, the injured child painted as a liar. The cruelty lay not only in denying reality, but in stealing Emma's fragile voice, erasing the last sliver of trust she held. Emma sobbed, her wide eyes straining as if to protest, but fear swallowed her words. The sight crushed Ethan's chest. He knew if Victoria continued, Emma would grow up doubting her own pain, trapped in a warped reality. Silence fell, long enough that the ticking clock on the wall became piercingly loud. Ethan fixed his gaze on Victoria so cold it made her flinch, but he said nothing of the video. In his coat pocket, the phone still held the evidence, his weapon not yet revealed. He chose silence, like a predator circling, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The air turned into a silent war. Victoria fought to maintain her upper hand, but Ethan's rigid quiet unsettled her. Emma trembled on the sofa, her small arms wrapped around her chest in instinctive defense. Her tearful eyes followed every movement of her father, clinging to the hope he would do what she could not, protect the truth. Ethan drew a deep breath, then quietly bent down and lifted Emma into his arms. She clung to his shoulder, her breath still shaky. Victoria stepped back slightly, but forced her voice to stay calm. Are you trying to make me the villain in front of her? Her final words rang like a challenge, but Ethan simply turned, walking away without reply. In his eyes, a cold light flickered. The truth would come out, just not yet. The door closed softly, leaving Victoria frozen in the golden light. How would Ethan use that video? Would he reveal the truth in silence, or deliver it as a public blow that would shock the world? And before we continue with the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Oh, and leave a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We'd love to know. Night fell over the Malibu mansion like a heavy velvet curtain, glittering with the distant glow of city lights. But in the secluded study on the second floor, Ethan sat motionless before his laptop screen. His eyes were bloodshot, not from alcohol, nor from late nights poring over million-dollar contracts as usual, but from hours glued to the security camera footage. On the screen, Victoria appeared again and again. A cold face, violent hands, the sharp click of high heels striking the stone floor as she dragged Emma. Each frame cut into him like a knife, yet Ethan did not look away. Patiently, he rewound, replayed, and stitched the clips into a seamless sequence. His hands moved with precision. This was perhaps the rare moment when the very technology that had made him rich became a weapon to protect his family. In the room, only the clatter of keys broke the silence, interspersed with the raw sounds from the footage, the thud of a crutch hitting the floor, the scrape of a lock turning, the muffled sobs of a child. Sometimes Ethan paused, taking a deep breath. Once, a bitter laugh slipped out, not from amusement, but from the irony. A home once hailed by design magazines as a symbol of safety and comfort had become the very stage for a family tragedy. Emma often crept into the study, her small eyes lighting up when she saw her father still awake. She didn't say much, just left a crayon drawing on his desk before slipping out. One showed herself standing before a locked door, another the crutch hurled into the dark. The crude but decisive stroke spoke louder than words, the testimony of a witness incapable of lying. Ethan kept each sheet beside the computer, puzzle pieces completing the record of crimes he was quietly building. Some mornings, while Victoria busied herself with makeup downstairs, Emma leaned close to whisper. Her voice was tiny, trembling, but her gaze carried an eerie determination. She told of nights locked in dark rooms, of her therapy equipment taken away, of being forced to sit still for hours to learn obedience. Ethan listened, never interrupting, only nodding gently. He knew that for a child, the courage to speak at all was braver than any verdict. Day by day, while Victoria smiled for cameras at parties, her Instagram captions overflowing with boasts of family bliss, Ethan pressed on with his quiet mission. He collected every fragment. Emma's whispered accounts, security footage, childish drawings, even hidden receipts for painkillers Victoria had secretly purchased. Alone, they seemed small. Together, they formed a complete picture, a picture no lawyer could deny. The hardest part wasn't splicing videos, but holding back emotion. Every time he saw Emma struggling to pull herself upright in the footage, he wanted to storm into the living room and expose it all. But he knew one rash outburst could twist the truth, give Victoria room to turn the tables. So he chose silence, letting his fury smolder like embers under ash, waiting for the moment to erupt. One night, when the final edited sequence was complete, Ethan leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. On the screen, Emma's image lingered fragile, yet unyielding. In that dim light, he realized this was no longer just a fight for justice for a child. It was his chance to prove himself worthy of being her father. Outside, the city roared with its endless glamour. But in this room, a secret dossier was being assembled piece by piece, second by second, a living indictment ready to tear the mask off a false facade before the world. Where would Ethan choose to unleash the evidence, in the hushed chamber of a courtroom or under the dazzling lights of high society? And now, dear viewers, pause for a moment to hit that subscribe button before continuing with the story, only if you truly resonate with what I've shared. And don't forget to comment below. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. It's always incredible to see people from all over the world joining us here. The sleek black Bentley rolled down Rodeo Drive, its polished surface reflecting neon lights and luxury storefronts. On this weekend night, Beverly Hills wore its familiar glamour, yet in Ethan's chest, it all felt like the stage for a meticulously prepared play. The five-star hotel hosting the gala gleamed like a crystal palace. Giant chandeliers blazed overhead, violins carried a slow classical melody, and the mingling of fine wine and expensive perfume painted a tableau any lifestyle magazine would beg for on its cover. Men in sharp tuxedos, women flaunting glittering gowns, and press photographers swarmed the red carpet. Victoria stepped out of the car like a movie star, slipping her arm through Ethan's with her usual confidence. Her silver haute couture dress clung to every curve, diamonds flashing under the camera's glare. She smiled flawlessly, waving as though she truly were the compassionate mother the press adored. To anyone unaware of the truth, this looked like the perfect family, the successful husband, the stunning wife, united for a noble charity. Ethan, however, was different. He was as elegant as ever in his tailored tuxedo, but his eyes were ice. A faint, practiced smile lingered on his lips, just enough to deflect suspicion. In his jacket pocket, a tiny USB drive rested, packed with a carefully edited video sharp as a blade, waiting to be drawn. The ballroom glittered with opulence. Red wine swirled in crystal glasses, laughter rang out, heels clicked on polished stone. Victoria moved easily among them, bowing her head, leaving trails of Chanel perfume. She believed tonight, beneath the chandeliers and cameras, her image as a philanthropic stepmother would only grow stronger. But behind the lights lay a plan. Ethan had arranged everything with the organizers. The stage manager, an old business ally, gave a discreet nod when Ethan's eyes signaled. The MC, a trusted friend, knew exactly what cue to await. Behind the red velvet curtain, the massive LED screen was connected one click away from unleashing the truth to hundreds of elite onlookers. As Victoria stepped up to the podium, her hand resting lightly on the microphone, Ethan slipped back, watching. Her voice rang out smoothly, preaching about helping less fortunate children and her responsibility as a devoted stepmother to sweet Emma. The ballroom erupted with applause, cameras flashing, heads nodding in admiration. Ethan took a sip of red wine. The tannic bite spread across his tongue, yet felt flavorless. All he could see was Emma, her trembling hands reaching for the pink crutch. His grip tightened on the glass, and a thin smile curved his lips. Sometimes fate's irony was sharper than satire. An angel, extolling compassion, seconds before her mask would be torn away. The lights in the ballroom dimmed, preparing for the showcase of charity highlights. But the audience had no idea. Instead of polished images, a brutal truth was about to fill the screen. All that awaited was the moment when the small USB was plugged into the control booth. Outside, journalists live posted on social media, the hashtag number Charity Gala already climbing the charts. None suspected that within minutes, this very event would ignite scandal, and Victoria, the compassionate mother, would be the name on everyone's lips. The only question was, at what moment would Ethan choose to strike at the height of thunderous applause, or when Victoria bowed with her brightest smile in the camera's flash? The applause still thundered in the ballroom as Victoria smiled, her hand resting lightly on the microphone. On the gilded stage, she spoke about a mission to support disabled children, her syrupy tone so convincing that many in the audience nodded in admiration. Camera flashes rained down like a storm of stars. Then suddenly, the lights went out. The vast hall plunged into darkness filled only with uneasy murmurs. A few glasses clinked together. A tense silence stretched, taut as a violin string before it snaps. The giant LED screen behind Victoria flickered to life. But instead of the charity's logo, a chilling surveillance frame appeared. The hum of the security camera echoed through the speakers. And then the scene. Victoria, face twisted with rage, yanking Emma's hair. The child crumpled, her pink crutch flying against the wall, her muffled sobs echoing through the opulent room. The ballroom froze. Then came the gasps, the furious whispers rising like waves. Some guests covered their mouths, mothers broke into tears, and the relentless flashes of cameras captured every second of the unmasking. Victoria spun around, eyes wide at the screen. She trembled, lips quivering, before screaming, "No, that video is fake. Someone is trying to destroy me." But her shriek only fed the chaos. Guests muttered, pointed, phones came out, live streams lit up. The hashtag number Charity Gala flipped instantly from praise to outrage. Ethan sat below, silently watching. In his hand, the glass of wine tilted, its crimson surface rippling like the storm around him. He didn't need to speak. The screen spoke for him, the truest witness of all. The MC faltered, then quickly regained composure, hiding a spark of excitement at witnessing the historic moment Ethan had orchestrated. Security advanced toward the stage as Victoria stumbled back, her glittering gown now a chain dragging her down, stripping her of the elegance she once wore like armor. For the American audience accustomed to crime dramas and exposés, this moment pierced deep, anger, outrage, yet also grim satisfaction. Here was justice, not in a courtroom, but in the heart of a high society gala. Camera shutters snapped like gunfire. Frame by frame, they captured Victoria's face, shifting from confidence to shock to panic. She flailed in desperation, but her excuses drowned beneath the roar of condemnation. Powerful guests, once her friends and allies, turned their backs, eyes cold. In the corner, a young journalist whispered, "This will be front page tomorrow." And indeed, within minutes, Twitter exploded, with clips ripped straight from live streams. The nation watched. The world watched. Ethan set his glass down and rose slowly. He didn't climb the stage. He didn't need to. Standing amidst the crowd, his gaze fixed on Victoria. In his eyes burned the ice of betrayal and the unyielding resolve of a father who had finally protected his child. Victoria staggered, seeking an escape, but every exit was blocked by cameras and contempt. Security closed in. The ballroom lights blazed back to life, illuminating a truth too stark to be hidden. And if this was only the beginning, what would unfold next? When the law and the media together took aim, the chaos in the ballroom hadn't yet settled when a series of firm footsteps echoed against the marble floor. The grand doors burst open, and a wave of blue uniforms poured in, the polished gleam of police badges flashing under the crystal chandeliers. The tension, already thick, tightened to the point of suffocation. Every eye turned toward the officers, and the hall fell silent, as if the crowd had suddenly been transported into the climax of a high-stakes crime drama. The commanding officer strode to the stage, his voice booming but steady. "Victoria Hayes, you are under arrest for child abuse and charity fraud." A storm of whispers broke out, rippling through the audience. Those who once praised Victoria now gaped in disbelief, cameras firing relentlessly, capturing each second of this stunning reversal. For a moment, Victoria was frozen. Her glittering haute couture gown now looked like a misplaced costume. She staggered, gripping the microphone stand as though clinging to the last threads of her dignity. "No, this can't be," she gasped. But her frail protest was swallowed by the metallic snap of handcuffs. That cold, final sound left no room for doubt. A new wave of energy surged through the room. Relief. Women squeezed each other's hands. Men rose to their feet, applauding as if justice itself had just walked in. An elderly guest let out a dry chuckle, half sarcastic, half relieved. Beverly Hills finally got a real show. The media wasted no time. Reporters pressed forward, microphones and cameras raised high. Headlines were typed furiously into phones. Angel of Beverly Hills turned monster stepmom. What began as a glittering gala had transformed into the year's biggest scandal, destined for every front page by morning. Ethan, seated quietly until now, was no longer a spectator. He rose and walked forward, taking Emma into his arms from the friend who had been watching her that night. The little girl buried her face into his shoulder, her hair tousled, eyes still wet but no longer filled with fear. As Emma clung to him, the entire ballroom erupted to its feet. Applause thundered not just for justice, but for the unshakable bond between father and daughter. Ethan bowed his head slightly, his eyes shimmering with tears but clear with resolve. He didn't need a speech or defense. In that instant, his silence spoke louder than 1,000 words. A father holding his child, that was the image America wanted to believe in, the story they wanted to share. Victoria was escorted out between two officers, camera flashes mercilessly illuminating her distorted face. Her gown dragged across the floor with each faltering step, the clatter of her heels now a cruel rhythm of mockery. That image would become iconic. A woman once basking in admiration, now paraded off stage in public disgrace. For the American audience, there was a visceral satisfaction in seeing justice served instantly. The gala became a festival of justice, anger cleansed, truth exalted, and for a fleeting moment, everyone in the room felt like they too had taken part in protecting Emma. Ethan tightened his embrace around his daughter, his eyes following the officers as they disappeared through the doors. He knew the road ahead would still hold trials. But tonight, he had done the one thing that mattered most. He had stood up for her. And yet the question lingered. After this dramatic arrest, would Ethan stop at being just a father? Or would he turn the truth he had revealed into the beginning of something far greater? A month later, Beverly Hills once again glowed beneath the nightlights. The five-star hotel that had exploded into scandal now stood transformed, decorated afresh. The same golden stage, the same chandeliers, but this time, no hollow speeches, no glittering gowns hiding cruelty, no paparazzi chasing the stepmother's false image. Instead, The air held something else, quiet, warmth, and hope. Ethan stepped onto the stage in his familiar black tuxedo, but his eyes were different. No longer the cold fury of a father betrayed, but calm strength mixed with resolve. Behind him, the massive LED screen lit up with words. Sarah Foundation, for every child's right to be safe. It was named for his late wife, a woman who had given her heart to social work, and who had remained his anchor in the darkest years. The ballroom fell silent as Ethan bowed his head in remembrance. Sarah's smiling image appeared, her kind eyes watching over them still. When Ethan spoke, his voice didn't need to shout. Each word landed directly in the hearts of those listening. I once believed wealth could protect my family. But today, I know, money is not true strength. True strength is protecting children, not just my own, but all of ours. At that moment, Emma walked out from the wings. In a simple white dress, a brand new pink crutch in hand, her smile outshone every chandelier. She tossed a handful of colored paper butterflies into the air, and the hall erupted in applause. The clapping was no longer outrage released, but joy shared. The swirling butterflies shimmered in the light, symbolizing the children who would now be protected through the new foundation. Tears welled in many eyes. Some smiled through them, whispering, "This is the Beverly Hills. We need a place where light triumphs over darkness." A witty guest chuckled softly, "At least this time we're going home full of hope, not scandal." The table around him laughed, not with cynicism, but with relief, with gratitude. Ethan looked at Emma. Her steps were steadier now, her smile no longer timid. In that instant he understood his fight was never only to protect her, but to show her that the world could still hold justice, love, and hope. As the ceremony ended, the crowd lingered. Many came forward to shake Ethan's hand, pledging support for the Sarah Foundation. The press, this time, didn't hunt for scandal. They wrote of healing, of new beginnings. From the corner of the stage, the young lawyer who had stood beside Ethan during the trial watched quietly. Her navy blue dress was simple, her hair tied back, her gaze unwavering. Ethan caught her eye and smiled. No words were needed, both understood. Painful endings sometimes open paths where work, ideals, and even hearts find harmony. That night, as father and daughter left the gala, Emma glanced back at the hall, her eyes bright in the lights. She whispered, "Just for him. Mom, Sarah would be so proud." Ethan squeezed her hand, his heart swelling. He knew their journey wasn't over. This was only the first chapter in a larger story of turning pain into action, of transforming loss into life for the community. Because justice doesn't end when the handcuffs click shut. True justice begins when pain becomes action, when memory becomes fuel to protect the vulnerable. Ethan had chosen that path, from a silent father to a man who stood for the community. But who could say the road would be easy? For when you bring truth into the light, the shadows will always stir. And the lingering question remains: what forces in the dark are still waiting for their moment of revenge? Ethan's story reminds us all that true strength doesn't come from wealth, but from love and the courage to protect our families. And in a world so often glittering with excess, the most important thing is to hold on to a genuine heart. Dear viewers, if this story touched you, share it with your loved ones and friends across the United States to spread the message of fatherhood, justice, and healing. Don't forget to leave a comment below. What do you think of this ending? Has Ethan truly found peace, or is a new, more challenging chapter waiting just ahead? Would you like to see part 2 and continue this journey with us? Hit like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Because sometimes, you, the listeners, are also part of the journey that turns pain into strength.